Apollo 11 was the first manned mission to the moon. We will have a look at the landing site, but first let's have a look at the mission. The spacecraft used in the Apollo 11 space mission consisted of 3 parts: the command module, the service module, and the lunar lander. All modules launched by a Saturn V 3-stage rocket. The command module had a cabin for 3 astronauts and was the only part to return to Earth. The service module supported the command module with propulsion, electrical power, oxygen and water. The lunar module had 2 stages, a descent stage for landing and an ascent stage for sending the module into orbit around the moon. The 3-person Apollo 11 crew consisted of Commander Neil Armstrong, Command Module Pilot Michael Collins, and Lunar Module Pilot Edwin Aldrin, also known as Buzz Aldrin. Their mission was to fulfill President John F. Kennedy's statement of landing a man on the moon and bring that person back safely to Earth. Apart from that, their mission was to perform scientific experiments, gather material samples from the lunar surface, raise a flag, take photos, set up a TV camera and transmit to Earth. It all happened in the year 1969. On January the 30th, Beatles did their last public performance, the rooftop concert on Apple Records in London. January the 20th, Richard Nixon was sworn in as President of the United States. Leonid Brezhnev was General Secretary of the Communist Party in the USSR. The summer that year, the Apollo 11 liftoff was July the 16th from Kennedy Space Center Launch Complex 39 in Florida using a Saturn V launch rocket. That is a 3-stage rocket where the 3rd stage sent the spacecraft towards the moon. The journey took just over 3 days. Armstrong and Aldrin landed the lunar module Eagle on the surface of the moon, while Collins stayed in the command service module Columbia in orbit around the moon. July the 20th, the lunar module Eagle landed in the Sea of Tranquility at a location that got the name Tranquility Base. The first man to set foot on the moon was Neil Armstrong, who at that moment said the famous words, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." He was followed by Aldrin about 20 minutes later. The moon's surface temperature was varying from minus 53 Celsius to plus 66 Celsius. That corresponds to minus 63 degrees Fahrenheit to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. When communicating from the moon, the delay in transmission to Earth is about 1.3 seconds due to the speed of light. The Apollo 11 landing site is in the Sea of Tranquility, and it is quite far from larger craters. When looking at the area from Earth, it appears that the nearest major crater is Moltke, with a diameter about 6 kilometers, and it is about 30 kilometers away from the landing site. The astronauts didn't move around very long distance, since they only spent just under 2 hours and 15 minutes on the surface, and they didn't have a rover to drive around in. Apollo 15 was the first mission to use a rover. From the activities performed and the limited time, they couldn't move very far from the lunar lander, the Eagle. Just to see what was in the surroundings, I had a look at some of the larger craters seen through a telescope. They fulfilled the various tasks in the mission, gathering lunar surface samples, setting up cameras and experiment equipment. As mentioned, they spent just under 2 hours and 15 minutes outside the lander, and in total 21 hours and 36 minutes on the surface of the moon. During that time, they transmitted TV broadcast and also received a phone call from President Nixon in the White House. Communication as well as broadcast from the moon was supported by stations in both the US and Australia. Armstrong and Aldrin returned for a rendezvous with the Command and Service Module Columbia using the ascent stage of the lunar module. After returning to the Command Service Module, the Eagle was disconnected and Columbia was maneuvered to exit the orbit and enter a trajectory towards Earth. The Lunar Ascent Module was believed to eventually have fallen towards the surface of the Moon, but calculations made in 2021 show that it may still be in orbit. The astronauts returned to Earth and splashed down in the Pacific Ocean, July the 24th, after more than 8 days in space. They then had to spend 3 weeks in quarantine before returning to their ordinary lives. Apollo 11 was a huge success for the US, and the achievement overshadowed everything that had been done previously in space. It was followed by a series of manned missions to the moon in the Apollo program. We will have a look at the landing sites of the following manned missions to the moon. If you're interested to know more, don't forget to subscribe to this channel.